Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel, where, for once, in what seems like ages, we've had back-to-back weeks. Woohoo! Yes, we had to do back-to-back weeks, obviously, because this was a two-parter. This one. So if you're new to these, first of all, why are you coming in the second part of a two-parter? I've no idea.
Also, why
But
now?
yeah, also, especially with this episode, this is a series where we rewatch Doctor Who episodes. We've seen them all before. We rewatched from 2005 onwards. We are now in series 6 with Matt Smith, Karen Gillan, and Arthur Darvill. We're on episode 6, The Almost People, which is the second part to the Rebel Flesh from last week. When we left, the flesh had rebelled, as the title implied, and now they were gonna do some fighting. I'm sure they'll fight.
And there's a gang of Doctor now.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yep. There is a second Doctor.
The actual cliffhanger.
Yep. Sorry. See, I mean,
you clearly,
says a lot, I think.
This story's really stuck with you, and that's very moving.
It has. God, it's been funny when it gets my positives. Yeah, in this one we resolve the situation to some extent, with just going, all right, we've left. Whoever's still alive, you're the real
that
one.
Went horribly wrong. Bye.
Literally. It's we mentioned this off air, but worse than the one from last week. I preferred last week to this one. I think there are a couple of things that this one does well and does okay that I like, but mostly I do not like it. Not that I don't like it. It's just it's fine. It's passable, but it's definitely worse than last one. And there's just so much that it could have been so much more. And I think it's just it doubles down on everything that was bad from last week, in my opinion. And
this could have been a tweet.
Yeah, it definitely. This unfortunately feels like a bit of a filler episode, and it effectively is. It effectively feels like, we need to get to the next episode in this cliffhanger. What vehicle are we going to use to do that? We've not established anything before. We need to do it now, right before it happens. And so, it all boils down to this is just a means to an end, I think, in this one. And sometimes that means not a lot of care has been put into it. But what did you think?
Well, I think I just preferred it to the last one, because I do kind of feel like there was more to, for better or worse, there was more to grab my attention, I think, in this one. Because I guess there was a resolution in a sense.
It certainly was.
It's just like, well, this can all go away now, so I appreciate that. But yeah, it's still not brilliant. I'm really in two minds about this one, and I feel like if I ever rewatch this, I won't. But if I ever rewatch this, I really could end up either really liking it or really hating it. So I was interested in the general response to this one. So I was kind of looking up reviews and stuff online, and it really is 50-50. People either really, really love this one, or just despise it. And there are obviously some people who just like the ending, which is kind of fair. But yeah, it's such a weird mishmash of good ideas and good intentions and some good story and character beats, but then there's just as many that kind of cancel it all out, and it's bizarre. Just the lengths it kind of goes to shoot its own message in the foot, which we'll obviously definitely talk about again. And we talked about that last week as well, but sadly I don't think that's kind of rectified in this one at all. If anything, it's worse. And yeah, obviously people will remember it for the ending, which I think is fair, really, because it is a good ending, and also it's better than the episode that came before, really. Yeah, it's I get what he's going for with it. Oh, Matthew Graham, I'm sure you're a lovely guy. But yeah, it feels like almost the whole moral dilemma and stuff, it so nearly works but doesn't quite, that I'm almost kind of thinking this should have been one episode. The gangers are just straight up bad guys, and then we get the Amy twist at the end, and this probably would have been looked back on a lot better. Sadly, so they gave it a good go, and I respect it, but I don't think it quite came together in the end.
No. I was quite I thought, at the end of last episode, I was like, oh, maybe they do something, maybe they redeem it, but I don't think so. But anyway, as with every episode, we do aim to have 3 positives and 3 negatives. We have cobbled together some positives, so that's good. We're not like, oh, I can only think of one. So,
I guess that's
definitely,
something.
it's definitely, it certainly is an episode of Doctor Who.
And
we
don't have any bonus ones, which might be a first.
No. So I did go first last week, so I'll let you take the lead this week. What's your first
thank
positive?
you. That's really kind. My first, there's a fly. Go away. My first positive, as my secret first positive is every week, really, but I've made the subtext text this week. It's Matt Smith. Best boy. I adore that man. And yeah, we get kind of double of him in a way in this one. And I did like him kind of acting alongside himself, even though obviously he's not really. And all the different kind of nuances that he brings to it. They do try and do a similar thing to Jen, like which one is which and all of that. And I think it's a shame that as soon as they show the shot of his shoes at the start, like, oh well, we know where this is going. That's kind of a shame, but I guess you need to set it up, otherwise it's going to be like, well, that came out of nowhere. So.
The shoes aren't exactly the thing that you see a lot of in the show, is it? So it's an annoying thing that they had to like point it out, but you wouldn't naturally see that in shot. If it was a different bow tie or something, then you might. There's a bit of a thing there, but shoes is one of the annoying
ones. It's a
ones.
shame. So maybe they should have just like ruined his jacket in the last episode rather than his shoes. It was like a more obvious change that you don't need to point out or something.
He lost his jacket or something like that, and the other one's wearing one.
But maybe they did the jacket thing in series 5 and they didn't want to do it again. That's lots of discourse, I'm sure. But again, Matt Smith's always fantastic, and every single actor and actress who's played the Doctor, has often been even the best part of bad episodes, and at least makes them bearable and watchable. And I do think that
they're in the bad episodes.
If they're in it,
sometimes they're not.
Sorry, they're monsters. So that's good. I enjoyed watching him, particularly when I think Rory and Amy are fucking idiots in this episode, and they don't really get much to do. I think Rory very much fills the role that Amy filled last week when he's just.
Rory doesn't make an appearance until 17 minutes into the episode.
There you go. That says it all. Really.
I checked.
He doesn't need to be here.
As soon as he came up, I was like, "Oh, there's Rory. What time are we on?" 17 minutes.
I was thinking like we haven't seen him in ages, because his storyline's not interesting, I guess.
No.
And they clearly knew it. But Matt Smith is great. And they tried to do the thing with Jennifer, I think, with like all the nuances of who is who and what are their motivations at any one point. But I think with the Doctor, maybe because we just know the character a lot better, I think it does actually work. Even if you do know the twist is coming, I think you can kind of like, when did they exactly switch shoes?
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking. I was like, who is this our Doctor threatening Amy against the wall? Is that?
I think, because I think it was the real Doctor that Amy was like, I've seen you die. I think by then he'd switched, and he was like, I need to get her on side with the gang, so I'm going to pretend to be this weird, crazy ganger and like throw her against the wall and shit. Which I quite like because there's this whole kind of manipulation thing with the Doctor and the companions a lot of the time. So I like they kind of lean into that, and we can talk about, I think, how this episode does kind of set up a lot of the rest of the series quite well in a way a bit later on. But Matt Smith, as always, is great. He has some really funny moments interacting with himself. And then when shit hits the fan with Amy at the end, he can be a bit like, oh shit. I very much enjoyed his performance, as I always do. But I think it's very good to highlight it in an episode that probably isn't that strong. The fact that I can still get a decent chunk of enjoyment out of it because he carried it through. Shout out to Matt Smith as always, and I'm sure it was very fun for him to call himself Mr. Smith throughout this episode when that's literally who he is.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that Matt Smith's technically my positive. My first one's technically the whole 11 and like 11 dynamic. It's Matt Smith, but I like it's always fun when two of the same Doctor appear. When it's the same character. It happened in Flux. It happened in Journey's End.
When else did it happen before this episode? You'll have to tune into the fun facts to find out.
Oh no. I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm sure if it was in Classic Who, it was done very well and it didn't look janky at all.
Classic Who did it a
Yeah.
lot.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But yeah, I thought it was really good. He plays off himself quite well. There are some good humorous moments in there between the two of them, as well as some pretty dark and deceptive ones. Where even I'm a bit like, oh god, this Doctor could be a bit dark and threatening when he needs to be, and that obviously gets a bit more play in the next episode. Um, but yeah, and then just Matt Smith in general throughout this episode is great when he's doing when the Flesh is first becoming Matt Smith and he's going through all the Doctors. I think they drop in a couple of lines from at least the voices from 4 and 10, I think.
Tom Baker is actually Matt Smith doing the impression of Tom Baker.
Oh, is it?
It was like a common myth that it was actually Tom Baker's voice. I do think it's done a bit later on. I think he probably I can do better. From when I watched it, I was like, I feel like that might be or something, but it was him doing an impression.
Interesting. Well, there you go then. But still, I like all that. And I like the whole when he quotes 10 or whatever, it's like, oh, we've moved on, and I'm like, well, you haven't quite yet, have you? So,
Russell T Davies begs to differ.
Literally. But yeah, I think Matt Smith's great in this. The concept of him, up against himself, is great. Obviously it plays in a part for the plot, but that whole thing also is a reason why Amy and Rory don't get too much to do, I think. But I would rather have this than have more of Rory's plot.
Exactly. That's what I can be grateful for.
I think this is what really does sort of, I say, save the episode. Still not one that I'd go back and watch tomorrow, but it's definitely a reason why I would watch it.
If the storylines were more balanced, which would normally be like, oh good, they balanced the characters that well, I think I'd regard this one even worse. So I'm glad that wasn't the case.
Exactly. So what's your second positive?
My second positive is how it ties into the overall series arc. And not just the obvious things. Yeah. I think there's some, nice things as well. So yeah, not necessarily I'm talking about the ending here because that's a separate point because I couldn't think of much.
Wow.
But yeah, just kind of some other things that I liked. Like when we find out like that was actually the real Doctor that Amy told about his death and stuff, so now he's aware of it. He finds out properly in Let's Go Hitler anyway. But
he doesn't exactly do anything with that information from this point until
I think obviously in Impossible Astronaut and stuff, like, we can't tell you what this is about, you just have to do this mission and blah blah blah. So I guess he kind of is putting 2 and 2 together slowly but surely. And when with Let's Go Hitler, he gets the date that it happens, so he knows exactly when it's going to be and everything. So I do like Amy unknowingly kind of revealing that to him. I like the idea of like having the 2 Doctors there makes it make a bit more sense that she accidentally tells him. And I think that's fucking fly, go away.
I don't know why you'd risk it, but yeah
exactly. But I guess she was so stupid and adamant, like, oh, I know that you're the Doctor, you're my best friend, I'm trying with you, we've been through so much together, and you're fucking wrong. Idiot.
Idiot.
But yeah, I did very much enjoy that. And then the Doctor kind of toying with Amy's faith in him when like he's pretending to be the Ganger and like throwing her against the wall and stuff. That ties in quite nicely to the idea of Amy's faith in the Doctor in the God Complex later in the series. So I think that's quite a nice bit of setup there, maybe unknowingly, who knows.
Definitely unknowingly.
And the reveal of like the Ganger Amy at the end, there is kind of 2 Amy's that's been floating about all this time. Again, some setup for the Girl Who Waited, because the Doctor's quite brutal with Ganger Amy at the end, which again kind of goes against the point that Gangers are exactly the same as the counterparts.
You're not the same. Goodbye.
We'll get on to that, but he's very brutal with not his Amy, and that's obviously the way he treats the other Amy in the Girl Who Waited as well. So that's kind of setting up a character point that does end up making sense later on. So there's a few little bits like that I actually think are nice to kind of watch. But oh, so that could tie into where this particular storyline's going or where this character moment's going, and sets up a lot of stuff probably unknowingly, particularly because this wasn't written by Stephen Moffat as well. So I imagine he might have given you a few things to like maybe seek this in, but who can say? But yeah, I did very much like everything about this episode that wasn't the plot of this episode and what it sets up in future, really. So yeah, I think it's quite nicely and subtly done. And again, this is kind of setting up some character moments in like one-off episodes people might have long since forgotten, like the God Complex and stuff. So I think that means it is quite subtly done, and it's not like, you know, we know where this is going. The only water in the forest is the river. Oh, who could that be about? Who can say? Who can possibly say? So yeah, I really enjoyed how, maybe unknowingly, but how well that kind of was done to set up future things. And, you know, considering all of these come later in this series makes me think it is a bit more purposeful. But yeah, very well done regardless.
I will. I'm sure it was done on purpose.
Definitely.
You're definitely not stretching at all.
Definitely not.
But no, fair enough.
We're trying to be kind, Connor. This episode's having a rough go of it.
Oh, I know. Yeah, in which case, my second positive is your third positive, as it's the Amy reveal at the end.
Right.
You know, it's kind of hitting that right at the start where, you know, he's like, oh, I'll drop you off, and, you know, whatever. But you only really get it. Well, I say get it when it's explained to you, but, you know, it only all slots into place once towards the end when they both sort of say, oh, yeah, both of them are like, yeah, breathe, remember to breathe, it's fine. And then she's like, oh, what? And then it escalates. Yeah, I'm like, oh, that's a bit
invasive, sir.
But yeah, I think, you know, and how he has to sort of tell Rory to be like, look, Rory, you need to stand back because you're going to get flesh all over you in a second. So please leave.
You've been horrible to your wife this whole episode. You might as well be horrible to her.
But it's not your wife though, so it's fine.
But it's not your wife.
It's not real. Doesn't matter. Just say you knew all along. But yeah, I think it's a good reveal because it's something that you're not really expecting, especially because you've already had the Doctor be flesh.
Yeah, you think that's
and it's because nothing happened to Amy in the 2 episodes. She was, you know, she was effectively on the sideline. She never had the opportunity to be turned into flesh or copied or whatever. You know, even the Doctor didn't, and they're sort of like, oh, it must have whatever. She's never been near the flesh, so it does take you by surprise.
Yeah, and the irony that Amy spent the entire episode doubting whether or not gangers have worth and whether or not they're the real versions when she herself was one. I quite like that. Yeah, it's definitely, you know, it is a good ending to this, and it does tie it all together, and it makes sense, and it makes sense why this story is in the series. You know, it gives it purpose. And I think without that reveal at the end, if it maybe came later in the series or whatever, I think it would have been worse. If it wasn't at the end of this episode, like if they did another adventure and then, you know, I don't know, for whatever reason. But again, it comes back to the whole that this whole reveal is the whole point of this 2-parter, which shouldn't really be the case. But I don't know whether it was written that way or whether that was just something that they put in at the end and just went, oh, we can, you know, that makes sense. But I imagine that's where they were going with it. But I also think they thought they were doing more than they actually did with the plot line itself. And also, you know, this is to fuel the speculation of how the Doctor escapes his death and stuff.
Yes.
He's even like, oh, there's still a chance you might survive this, you know, your molecules and shit. So people could be like, well, he's going to come back and he's the one who dies, blah, blah.
So when Matt Smith returns in the 60th, it's going to be the flesh Matt Smith and not real Matt Smith.
If I don't care. As long as we get Matt Smith. It's not to the 10th Doctor. It's our main Doctor. I don't give a shit.
Yeah. But they could do a 10th Doctor, 14th Doctor, like 11-11, but they have the 2 of them.
That's the most Russell T Davies thing, so I wouldn't be surprised. We've already had 2 David Tennants in a Russell T Davies story, so why not another one?
Couldn't get 9 back, so just put in 10. Yeah, it's fine.
Put in 10.
But yeah, again, I mean, the reveal at the end is great. What are your thoughts on it? I assume it's your.
It is my third positive, because you know this was kind of an immediate setup for the series arc rather than, you know,
subtle
foreshadowing. Probably not purposeful foreshadowing, but I remember it taking me completely by surprise when this aired, and you know it was very much, oh wow, that ending, 10 out of 10 reviews. I'm like, there was still 40 minutes before that, but okay.
Something that happens a lot in Doctor Who, especially like recently, where it's like, oh my god, the last 10 minutes. That's how TV works now. It's all like, oh my god, that cliffhanger, and then people sit through the 45 minutes beforehand going, this is all right.
Oh my god, this character's back from 10 years ago. That worked out well. So yes, it's a really great kind of shocking ending. especially when at this point you kind of like, oh, come on, just end.
Yeah.
And then you get that, and like, oh well. And obviously the next episode is like at this point in the mid-series finale and stuff. And I think we also, we knew it was going to be kind of a big deal. So then when we get this, like, oh shit, well, I really don't know what to expect from the next one now. And it's a really great kind of, turning the series on its head kind of deal. And I think so much of the discussion would have been about the Doctor's death at this point online and everything. So to do such a big reveal about Amy, kind of shifts the focus away from that a bit. And I really enjoy, the classic turn that it takes. And good setup for a much, much better episode next time. So I can appreciate it for that, if nothing else. But it is. I'm glad that at least something in this episode like really does, punch your lights out.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So my third and final one is kind of cheating. It's kind of from last week, but it's again the concept. The what they could have done. I mean, it's kind of cheating because they don't do it, but it's what they could have done with the flesh. They have this whole thing with the flesh pile, and they're like, oh my god, people need to see this, and then just I guess we'll go and tell a boardroom full of people, I guess, hastily assembled press conference. There could have been a lot more done with it. There's so many things you could put in there with metaphors and analogies, and we discussed all this last week, and it's just, I was hopeful they'd do something interesting with it this week, and they did not. They almost do with the guy that has the kid. They almost do something nice there. But it still feels very much like they go from I'm the real one to but he's the real one and there's a son, to then going I'm the real one. It's like, can you commit to either believing you're real or not?
We kind of, I can talk about that a bit later, but
anyway,
it happens too quickly.
But they have, there's so much stuff in there that they could have done really well, but unfortunately they don't. But I do like the concept, and I still like the concept of the flesh. I just want to see it done better. So props to that, props to the unique idea. I think negatives then. Sorry almost people.
I know, I feel kind of mean, but also
never mind. What is your first negative?
My first negative, I think we kind of talked about this last week as well, but the story just keeps shooting itself in the foot. That's kind of just what I've written as like my first main one. We have Jennifer kind of, trying to prove to Rory that, oh no, I am the real Jennifer, blah 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 blah, and I am human. We're doing this, and then she turns and mocks Cleves for being like, oh, have you become so human that you do this? You want to be seen as human, you stupid bitch.
And you kill one of your own flesh clones as well. It's like,
hang on,
you know how they feel when they die. And you've just killed one.
Yeah. Your whole message is just like thrown away. You've killed a ganger as well. So that's annoying. And the fact that this episode is trying to teach us like some of these, the gangers really are like equals and they're humans, and yet they can't actually work that machinery that Jennifer's trying to use, and she had to get Rory to slap his hand on it. All of that. And the first like 10 minutes, everyone is fine with the ganger doctor until they're not. And then they suddenly decide, oh yeah, you're a ganger.
And so Amy's like,
great.
I don't trust you.
All that disdain and everything, and then they're absolutely fine with this one for like 10 minutes, and then goes completely unmentioned until it then is relevant. And then flip-floppy motives all over the place. Cleves goes back and forth playing fucking table tennis with herself or something. I don't even know. All the back and forth. There's just no reason for her to keep changing her mind all that much, and like just commit to something, and there's not really any payoff to that and anything like that. And I'm just like, and I like that, Jennifer is obviously the one that turns into the monster and stuff, and there's always going to be like someone who's kind of the bad one, I guess. And the other gangers, I guess if they weren't misguided, they're not so bad. They kind of, a lot of them do the right thing in the end and see sense and everything, and like, we do want peace, we're going to fight for this. And the guy takes his place of the dead guy and is like, I'm a dad now, hooray. So I do like that idea, but it's just, the episode itself is just doesn't really commit to the idea that the gangers are the equals. Because I guess it needed that monster moment. It just kind of, all of it undermines each other, and it gets very messy, and the conclusion kind of just happens so quickly when they decide to just change their minds. Well, like I was like, well, I'm dying, so I guess you can be his dad now. That's fine.
Yeah.
Even though you think he'd go to the grave hating that idea of him being replaced. So yeah, all of that is just a bit of nonsense. And honestly, I'd rather be Buzzer, and Jen just eats me halfway through. Like, just get me out of here. Poor Buzzer.
I know,
so
it's not the best way to go.
No, like all his gangers and the human Buzzer died.
Yeah.
And I mean, Jennifer, she kind of deserved. Well, human Jennifer, I guess, didn't deserve it, but she also gets all wiped out. But yeah, Buzzer really drew the short straw, getting eaten by horrible CGI elongated mouth. I wonder if we would have seen more of that scene. Stay tuned for my fun facts to find out. But yeah, the whole message of the episode and what they tried to do with it contradicts itself all the time. I just think you needed to sit down and properly maybe rewrite it. Maybe there wasn't time. Maybe they thought this was fine. But yeah, I do think the central message, just like part 1 did, it's not rectified here. It just gives you plenty of reasons to not lean into what the episode's also trying to say about, the gangers and anything like that, and what could apply to real life and stuff. It's just, it's a good idea, and there are some attempts made, and I think some things work, but sadly most of it just doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't follow through a lot of the time. It just goes, oh, maybe, and then just completely backtracks. Like, oh no, don't be silly.
Yeah.
No.
And they have like this interesting kind of like moral dilemma and stuff, and then it just becomes a run away from this horrible creature thing at the end.
Yeah. So it's basically the same as my major negative. I think it's really summed up by when they get in the TARDIS and the Doctor's like, they're people now. I'm like, I'm sorry, did we not just spend the past like 2 hours being like, oh, they're the same as people, they're exactly the same? I'm like, so why does, and then if that's the case, why not just get them all in the TARDIS in the first place and explain that to them? So, and then also, along with that, it's like, oh, you've got a bit of a blood clot, have you, Cleats? I can fix that with this little pill. It's like, why?
What was the point of that storyline? There's no reason for it.
Just get rid of it. But yeah, it's just a lot of it is, it could have been good. It could have been like interesting and insightful and all that kind of stuff. But then it just descends into a generic, uncommittal story. It could have been an interesting thing about the gangers and the humans and the prejudices and all that kind of thing. Then it just turned into, oh, we better run away from this weird dog Jen lady thing. And then, they're people now. It's fine. We can all forget about it and leave. And if they did that by getting to the TARDIS, why doesn't that happen to Amy? Why is Amy a still a flesh when everyone else was human? So that's my major one, is that it just doesn't commit to anything. I just don't think it's neat. It's not.
I just think it's bad.
So what is your second negative?
My second negative is that Amy and Rory look like idiots in this episode.
Yeah.
Both of them are horrible. Amy looks stupid by like being like, "Oh yes, you're definitely my doctor. I know who you are."
She gets mugged off.
Absolutely bugged off. She looks so stupid. Especially when you're rewatching it and be like, "Ha, you're so wrong."
You idiot.
She does have like the arc and stuff when she kind of realizes, "Oh, you're twice the man I thought you were." Blah blah. But that's such a quick heel turn. I don't know.
Nothing has changed. They're still the same people. They're still.
What she used to say there was, "I'm sorry," and then she's like,
"I'm wrong."
Twice them. I'm like, apologize for God. Yeah. I know it's like ganger Amy and stuff. I don't know if they just wanted to make her stupid because she's a ganger. I don't know.
Apologize or be like, "How dare you throw me up against the wall? That was very scary." One of the two should be fine, but they just get around it.
Yeah, so that made Amy look stupid and low-key, racist undertones, I guess, in a way.
Yep.
And then Rory is just unbearably naive the entire episode, to the point naive. Where obviously he's seen like one of the gens die. He's like, okay, well this is the road. And then she's like, oh, look at how these gangers are suffering. Oh, who's the real monsters, Rory? And he's still like, yeah, you're human. You're definitely human. Yeah, let's carry on.
Oh yeah, let's just put them in the room.
We have a connection. Rory,
you didn't say we lock them in the room. You fucking idiot. What else did you think was going to happen?
Yeah, Rory's an idiot, but he's not stupid. In this episode, he's an idiot and he's stupid. I think it's a crime.
It's the Jack Sparrow thing where Captain Jack Sparrow is an idiot, but he's not stupid. But they make him both in the last Pirates of the Caribbean film. They make him stupid and an idiot. which is what
Yeah.
Rory is in this, when that's
Yeah.
not the character and it should be the case.
Yeah. Never mind. At least he's badass in the next one. But
He is, to be fair.
yeah, he's just
Redemption.
so silly, and I guess plot. So he needed to be that stupid. But come on, he's better than this. Rory's better than this. So yeah, the fact that it's not just one companion that can dub in this one, like both of them. No, something's gone horribly wrong here.
Yeah, I get like Rory's motives, and he has the right motives of wanting to help the gangers and wanting to share the news about what's been happening and all that kind of thing. That is correct. But he's so naive in thinking that believing Jen, and also thinking that there wouldn't be any kind of like conflict involved, that no one would try and stop them, that oh yeah, let's go and get them in this room with the vat of acid and we'll just talk to them there rather than talk to them in a normal place. You didn't say we lock the door. We don't need to lock them in here. I was like, oh, for God's sake.
Guess I'll let her drag me away.
No, I know.
Bye.
Yeah, he's not the best. And yeah, Amy's just so prejudiced, and it's not even like by the end where she's like, oh yeah, gangers are just like us. She's just like, oh yeah, I guess you are the doctor then.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
Oh, I guess I misjudged you.
But I guess if Amy comes out of after A Good Man Goes to War, she comes out, she would argue as a human that wasn't the real her, and anything she did then wasn't her. That kind of thing. Even though.
Yeah, I guess the ganger Amy's having a much better time than actually.
100%, yes.
So I guess that's kind of fair, but also this is ganger Amy's view of it.
And also, she doesn't know. She doesn't know that. She hasn't got that. So if she knew she was a ganger, she would think differently.
Yeah.
But
And then Rory's like, he came up to the door. He's like saying, "I'm like, we need to show them all of this." And then the doctor's like, "There's no time for this, Rory." I'm like, "You're a ganger. You're saying this? What's going on here?"
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah. So those are also my second negatives. Amy in general, and then naive Rory, who is only in the episode for like 10 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
Soz. Your third negative.
Yes. I've just put, the Doctor ganger twist is very predictable.
Okay.
Open the shot, and it's fine because it is set up. It's not like it comes out of nowhere. It's not like it doesn't make sense. So I'd rather that than it's like it comes out of nowhere or doesn't make sense. But the fact that it takes so long to them to get to that big reveal, and they treat it as like this massive reveal. I guess they how else could you have set it up other than showing the feet? But then that just makes it so obvious.
It needed to not be shoes.
Yeah, I think that's the fundamental thing. Yeah, so I'd say, I wish in terms of directing they hadn't shown that. But I guess it's just the script level. It's his shoes and everything. And
you can't see shoes unless you show loads of shot of them running down corridors, whatever. You don't see shoes as part of a natural bit on TV.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's always going to be forced in the way that you show it to set that up. But yeah, I like the twists, and I think it does make sense, and I can see the place for it and what they're trying to do with it and stuff. So I don't actually mind it, but that's why it's kind of my third negative, not like any higher up. But it doesn't stop in an episode that's very grey and a bit dull, and you kind of when it doesn't really commit to anything. The one thing that it does commit to and see through properly is the most predictable story beat you probably could have had in an episode like this. It's a shame and unfortunate.
I think the most predictable bit was when there were two Jens and we're always like, oh my god, which one's the real one? I'm like, oh, of course you had to get in that cliche like conflict when there's ever like clones of people, and then neither of them are the real one.
Which,
it's a kind of nice, a little, but there's does Rory ever find out? I don't know. When does he find out? Oh, when they put him in the room, don't he? When they put them in the room,
at the door, and then she's like, my eyes are white.
Yeah.
Like, you lied to me.
Yeah. Oh, you fool.
You lied to me. The real Jen's dead.
My final. We are on the final one. Negative. Negative. It's just Jen turning into a generic monster.
Yeah, I find it. I don't know why I find it so funny that her hair is just like exactly the same. For some reason, that's the goofiest thing about it. You know, outside of that, I kind of like it, and I feel like if they did that nowadays, it would look like really, really good. I mean, it's not the Lazarus Monster at least, so there's something that looks a bit better than that.
Yeah,
but
a little bit.
Yeah,
better.
it's trying to be
I
such
think-
this nuanced story, and then
Yeah,
Iron Monster.
it just doesn't. You know, they kind of set it up a little bit when she can extend her arms and stuff, but it doesn't. I don't think there's any reason why she should be able to turn herself into a monster, which I think is the worst bit. It's just in
Yeah.
there because they need a creature to run away from, and acid
Yeah,
isn't good. And you know, it doesn't work. Whether it's the elongated mouth that eats someone, as I think that eats someone, like you know,
yeah,
why eat someone? You've not eaten anyone before.
yeah.
You know, if you can eat someone, eat Jen, the one that's going to give you away.
Exactly.
Eat that
Yeah,
one. But you know, there's no reason why. There's no explanation for why she turns into a monster. There's no reason for it. There's no precedent for it. None of the other gangers do it. So I don't. You know, they kind of try and set up that she's different to all the other gangers. She has all her old memories and that kind of thing. But again, there's no explanation for it. There's no reason why she can do that kind of thing.
So I get there's kind of like a metaphor to it, and that she's obviously she's too far gone, and she has kind of become the monster they think she is. But it doesn't mean she should actually turn into
you can do it without turning into a monster.
It's and for like next to no screen time either. Like it's literally like maybe 30 seconds on screen at most. Like
they needed something to run away from.
It didn't even need to be in the story.
No,
and then she explodes.
It's the reason why it's only in there because they need a reason why the gang of Doctor and Cleves can go. They need to kill him off, and like, oh, we've not got anything. I know, generic monster.
They can't let there be two of the same person left at the end. So
exactly.
They just need to write them out.
No, and
flip floppy motives. Like, why aren't you staying?
But then at the same point, if you're going to do that, then replace Buzzer with the other guy, because instead of having him survive there, have someone else. You can do it that way. It just doesn't work. It doesn't need to be a monster. It's there. You don't need it. And I'm kind of glad that Chibnall and his era, for however you feel, they moved away from just having a generic monster be in an episode because they needed it. They have some monsters that people will say are not very good, but at least they all sort of serve a purpose. They don't have a Rosa would have been terrible if the racist alien guy turned into a big monster and tried to eat the bus at the end. That wouldn't. But that's if not effectively what this is. But this is the sort of same situation where they don't just have a monster appear in the last 5 minutes to be like, ooh, scary.
I think you can say what you want about like the Chibnall era and how it's marketed and like the merchandise that ties into it, but I think the merchandising caused so many big blobby monsters to be made so they can make action figures of them. They cancelled the action figure of this that they were going to make.
And then you can think about the pots and vats of flesh that got put with every single action figure from Series 6 onwards, and the things you could do all that. It's
and
just I don't know whether
a little gang of masks. Stop for
I don't know whether it's a case of marketing went. The big thing is goo and all this kind of thing. You remember the Shaker Makers? It's like that, but with goo. And it's I don't know whether that was
slime only became a thing like in 2020. Like you're way too early.
They were ahead of the game, weren't they?
9 years ahead of the game. But it's just a bizarre choice, especially when like the gang of makeup kind of looks so much better and like they're kind of creepy in themselves. Like just
have
like maybe exaggerate that a little bit more rather than her going full
a complete monster, a complete dog woman.
Yeah,
literally. There's no
rotisserie chicken.
I like the sort of cinematography of when she like transforms and she like gets taller and that's good. But then
I do think that's cool.
Then it gets worse.
It feels like this should be like a Resident Evil boss fight, not a Doctor.
100%. Yes. No. Yeah. And if there was a precedent for gangers, mutating and doing all this stuff, then maybe. But there's not even a line of, oh yeah, remember when this ganger turned into
And you had a whole 2-parter to try and set this up. If you were going to do it.
Exactly, and it just doesn't work. Anyway, that's the last of my major negatives. Have you got any additional ones?
I think I do, probably. I put the generic monster chase at the end. The clock storyline with Cleves did not need to be there. Completely pointless. Jen's point, join the revolution. I had to make a note of that because that was terrible.
Mhm.
And yet, like her turning to monster and stuff, and her stretching her neck out, and all of that, it just felt at odds with again what the episode was trying to go for. And I felt the
Mhm.
same about the eyes on the wall. What was the point
Yeah.
of them? They walk past them in one scene. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, eyes.
It's there to make a joke about all the eyes have it. But
Yeah.
that's it.
Actually.
That's
Yeah.
it. And
That's fair.
like it's just like, wait, how does that time? Where's that come from? Was there more to that they cut out? It's just bizarre.
Yeah. So my sort of additional ones. How did the Doctor know to do the phone call? Did they say? He's like, oh, I'm pre-calling someone, and then
Yeah.
conveniently it's like, oh, here comes the phone. I'm like, how did you know you were going to be in this room at this point to answer this phone? Or were you just hoping there'd be a phone nearby whenever they, maybe you could pick it up from wherever in the castle when it didn't really matter, but it still feels like he knew that he would need it for this point, but there's no reason why he knew he would need it for that point. That's sort of a nitpick in terms of, hang on a minute, how did he know that? It's effectively two different Cleves. They're supposed to be the same person, but the Cleves that's like the Ganger is just so subdued and so like, oh, lol. She reminds me of the robot from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where it's just like, oh, well, never mind, everything's going wrong kind of thing. And it's completely different to the other Cleves, which like taking control as well. And the Ganger Cleves is the one that dies in the end, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which doesn't feel like a Cleves thing to do anyway. It's not like, but never mind. Maybe she's like, well,
when that Cleves was staying behind, the real one was like, no, come along. And then she's like, the Ganger's like, go. She's like, well, all right.
Like, yeah, well, you
didn't really want to stay then, did you?
No,
you just
no,
don't.
Come with
Wait,
me.
stop,
Oh, no.
come back.
Yeah, literally. And then also special shout out to the CGI. The eyes on the wall, the weird flesh
It's
pile.
when Jennifer's melting and her mouth's going.
yeah.
God, what are you? You're not a hungry bird in a nest.
The flesh pile, when it zoomed in on the face, it reminded me of is it Heidi Klum? Is that her, the one that does all the Halloween stuff?
Oh yeah.
And she went as the worm, and she had the
yes,
face thing.
God,
that's
yes,
what it is.
It does.
That's what it
God,
looked
this
like.
episode's so culturally relevant now.
God, it's so ahead of its time.
Wow.
But that's all I could think of when I saw it. I was like, that's just a Halloween costume. But it looked bad. It still looked bad. And then when she's like trying to soothe it and she's not quite touching it,
yeah,
fine, whatever. CGI is never the best bits of an episode, really.
No, it's true.
That's it for the negatives. Let's cleanse the palate now with some interesting facts, or some fun facts at least.
Yeah, I can't say they're interesting necessarily, but I guess we'll see. Okay, right. The working title for this episode was Gangers. So
that's so dumb.
Yeah, almost people so much better. Again, another good episode title wasted on a bad episode. Yeah. There you go. The US premiere of this episode was delayed a week to avoid a drop in viewership due to Memorial Day weekend.
Imagine having to wait an extra week for this.
You watched that, and then you're like, oh, I have to wait an extra week
for
part 2. Which also meant that Good Man Goes to Wall then also aired a week after the episode was broadcast.
Oh, really?
So that probably got a lot of people spoiled. Sadly.
Yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't just put them on back to back, like put the part 2 on like 45 minutes before and then go straight into it. But I guess this is before they. Well, I would say before they simulcast it, but Series 6 was when they were supposed to be doing their whole, well, hey, America, we're here, and then to screw them over like that is a bit unfortunate. But,
yeah, that was a thing that happened. This is the 9th time the actor playing the Doctor has played a different character within the same story. The previous occasions were William Hartnell in The Chase and The Massacre, Patrick Troughton in The Enemy of the World, Tom Baker in The Android Invasion and Meglos, Peter Davison in Arc of Infinity and The Caves of Androzani, and David Tennant in Journey's End. And obviously it's happened again since this episode, and I'm sure we'll get to that when we cover those episodes. The Doctor's remark that the eyes have it after walking past the wall of eyes is a reference to words uttered by the Speaker of the House after a vote at the British House of Commons. But obviously it's the eyes as in A-Y-E. The eyes have it. So, ha. Thank you. I'm glad we got that scene for that joke. Wonderful.
Yeah. I'm glad we had to have the explanation for the joke as well.
Yeah, I'm glad the Milne spent all that time putting his eyes on the wall. Excellent. Yeah. Great use of time. So it was not in fact Tom Baker's voice used in the opening sequence, as is popular opinion, but Matt Smith's impression of him.
Oh, very good
Not bad
impression.
at all. Not bad.
Get
at
him in
all.
for the audio for the big finish.
Yeah. Matthew Graham found it easy writing for the two doctors, noting that the 11th Doctor tended to have a constant internal monologue and often finished his own sentences anyway, which I guess does make sense. I'd enjoy writing.
I mean, to be fair, I also finish my own sentences myself, so I guess that's not it's not a thing that.
Well, he's not writing about you, Connor. Not everything's about you.
Liam, everyone finishes their own sentences.
I don't know what you mean. I don't. Or do I?
You just did. You just did.
That was the joke, Connor. That was the joke. God damn it.
Oh.
Anyway, let's move on. This bloody episode. Let's just finish this. The original script, I think I talked about this last week as well. The original script explained that Jennifer had perfect memory recall, which is why that she remembers all the horrible things that have happened to the flesh, and they ask why.
Yeah,
like, it's just one line. Get rid of this stupid eye scene and just have her mention that at some point. Yeah. Anyway. The original ending of the episode had Amy having a vision of the eye patch lady as the Doctor and Rory headed back into the TARDIS. So I think it was a bit late on in development when I thought, oh, this episode's rubbish and boring. We should probably change this up at the end.
Yeah.
So whoopsie. Matthew Graham originally wanted to set this episode in a completely new location to throw people off, but decided it was unnecessary. And Matthew, you were correct. Why would that make any sense?
So...
No, that's true. This was the first time Matt Smith had ever worn prosthetic makeup. So that's a fun story, and he looks terrifying.
Yep, horrible. Don't do it again, please.
Yeah, please don't. Never again. It was originally planned for Jennifer to eat Buzz on screen in the episode, but the Mill, who obviously do the effects and stuff, decided that only the shadows of the action should be seen on the wall as the camera pans away. All of this was ultimately cut from the episode, with Jennifer's elongated mouth as she ran towards Buzzer being all that remained.
Poor. I think it probably would have been better if they kept some horrendous stuff in, like the Carrier Knights.
Something, wouldn't it?
Like the Carrier Knights getting the man, and it's on the shadows.
That's terrified me when I was a kid.
Exactly, and it might have had something similar, but alas,
it could have also looked terrible. So we'll never know, I suppose. Karen Gillan talks to her mother about her labour scene to get inspiration before she shot it, which I guess
fucking hurts.
It's fucking awful. It did seem like it hurt.
Yeah.
The CGI monster. Oh, I forgot about this. This is so savage. The CGI monster Jennifer transforms into at the end was inspired by a photo of Madonna. Where her arms were, and I quote, white, veiny, and fleshy.
Oh, why?
That's so mean.
That's why Madonna's never guest starred on the show. She's seen that and
I'm
gone,
sure
I'm
that's
never
the reason.
speaking to you.
And it's also a drawing in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland depicting Alice with a long neck, which I guess also inspired Jennifer in the last one. But there we go. Matthew Graham wanted the creature to have a real face and an alien body, because that worked so well in the Lazarus experiment. The pile of discarded Jennifer gangers were originally just a pile of bodies, but this was deemed too grim. Instead, Instead, they used life-size dolls, and CGI flesh was painted onto them to look more melted.
Don't do it. Just don't do it.
Just don't do it. Just don't do this episode. 12-episode series are fine. In the original script,
8 episodes. Just get rid of it.
I'll take 6. In the original script, the Doctor quizzes the Flesh Doctor about the events of the Mind of Evil, which is a third Doctor story, and mentions Jo Grant, Sarah Jane Smith, Romana, Rose, Martha, and Donna. But obviously, they didn't do that. Probably because they get referenced in Let's Go Hitler anyway.
Had to have the eyes in it. That's what it was.
We had to have that, yeah. Definitely needed that scene, very much so. And then finally, originally the death of the Ganger Doctor was to be accompanied by him reliving happy memories, including travelling with Susan, defeating Davros with Sarah Jane, meeting Rose, and eating fish fingers and custard with young Amelia. I think that would have been quite nice.
There's so much stuff that they've cut from this where I'm like, oh, that would have been cool to see.
That would have been...
No.
That would have held weight. That would have actually made it a bit more impactful.
Yeah,
and they didn't do it.
Yeah. And made it be like, oh shit, he is. This is the death of the Doctor.
And that would lean into what the episode is trying to say, and they cut all that out. Yeah, as soon as I read that, I was like, why would you not do that? That's such a lovely little thing. But there you go, they didn't.
You can even use archive footage. It's fine. You don't need to just shoot new stuff. Just use the archive stuff.
And people would have been very happy for a Susan reference like that.
Yeah,
so we didn't get one until the pilot. So actually no, he does mention her rings like a 10, but that's still a year away from this. 2 years.
Is she not in Day? She's not getting mentioned in Day of the Doctor. There must be a picture of her in there, surely.
Yeah, but that's after Rings of like a 10, isn't it?
It is. You are right. Of course. How silly.
Of course. But yeah, that's my fun facts. So basically, the episode could have been a bit better, but it wasn't.
Yeah, they decided against it. Excellent, fun facts. You know, they are fun facts. They're funner than the episode, at least.
Yeah.
Out of 10, what are you giving the episode this week?
Well, I just had preferred it a bit more. I've written down 5.5, but discussing it, I'm like, no, there's so much wrong with it. So I'm sticking with 5 again. I think.
Okay.
It's like, I'm just gonna put it on par.
Yeah, that's fine. I've given it 4.5, so I'm 0.5 down. Mainly because it just doesn't. It just double. Like I said, it doubles down on everything that was wrong in the last one. It doesn't commit. It shoots out in the foot. It doesn't. You know, so it turns into a generic monster movie after this, and it's just, you know, it's just unnecessary.
The best thing about it is that I think we've gotten the weakest story of Series 6 out of the way.
100%. It's all uphill from here.
So, hooray!
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think Let's Go Hitler's a bit
it's very divisive, isn't it?
online, so I'm interested to see how I feel when I get to that one. But before we get to that one, we do have next week A Good Man Goes to War, which I think is quite highly regarded. I watched it a lot when I was younger. Like, I had it on TV. You know, one of the ones I just constantly rewatched.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued to go back and see how I feel about it. It's our first introduction to the Paternoster gang, I believe. Yes. So I'm intrigued to go and see how they form, kind of. Or at least, you know, we see how they at least get brought together, not necessarily how they, you know, met. But you know, I'm intrigued. It's finally some big story stuff, which I'm excited to. There's some cameos, nice cameos from monsters, characters, and that kind of stuff.
Cybermen. It's been so long.
Yes, it's been 3.
It's been a whole 5 episodes.
No,
but we've had lots of weeks off.
That's true. But yeah, so I'm excited for next week. What do you remember for A Good Man Goes to War, and what are you expecting?
Yeah, I mean, I remember it vividly because I watch reactions to this all the time. It's such a good one for reactions as well.
Yeah,
but yeah, I adore this episode. It's definitely one of the best of Series 6. I think it's definitely one of the best, I would say, of Matt's era as well in general. You know, I mean, it's very much built up to that River song reveal, of course. A really great cast of other characters in there, even like more like minor characters as well. I think really do shine in it. And yeah, kind of Doctor Who doing a mid-season finale, and hell of a way to kind of go about doing it, I think. So I'm really excited to revisit it because, you know, it's such a kind of iconic moment, I think. You know, I often listen to the soundtrack when River's identity gets revealed, because that music is absolute banger. And yeah, I think the whole episode fires on all cylinders. Hopefully I still regard it and still have that opinion of it when we revisit it. But at the end of the day, it's going to look so much better now that we've watched All Those People.
100%.
So yeah, I'm really, really excited for this one. This is when you kind of said, oh, shall we do this Doctor Who rewatch thing? This is one of the episodes I was like, oh, I'm looking forward to when we get to that. And here we are.
Almost 2 years.
2 years later. I've been a patient boy. But yeah, I'm excited to revisit it. It should be a very interesting one to kind of check back to, you know, 11 years later. And yeah.
God, yeah. Well, that will be our last one before Christmas. I'm going to try not to get it out on Christmas Day because that'd be silly. But yeah, the normal upload is Sunday, so it might be Christmas Day, but I'll try and get it out before then. But it depends when we record, all that kind of jazz.
We'll wear Christmas jumpers for it just in case.
We will attempt to, yes, if I remember. No. And yeah, I don't know what we'll do over Christmas, New Year yet. We're busy doing all sorts, you know, seeing family. I'm still working through Christmas, so who knows when we'll have time. But you know, if it's a mid-series finale next week, so it kind of makes sense for us to take a little.
I think it's a good point to start. This is why we took all those weeks off.
Yeah, right. We planned this. We definitely planned this in advance.
This is why we was like, oh, good, they've released some news. We can do that instead of the Rebel Fleet.
100%. But now we're past this bit. It's all up for real from here. I can't remember another episode where, you know, it's going to be not great for a while. So I'm excited.
Until Christmas.
I was just thinking that, when's the next one? I was like, oh no, Christmas. But it's fine. That's still a while away. That'll be Easter when we get to that.
The perfect Christmas time.
Exactly. But yes, that is it for this week. And we will see you next week for A Good Man Goes to War. Goodbye.
Bye.